The tiniest part of you comes into this incarnation, and the rest of you, which is about 99.9%, stays behind and is guiding you. And that's what you call your higher self, or your inner guidance, or source energy, is the rest of you. So why would you go it alone? I figured out that I'd had the signs the whole time, that the universe was always telling me, this is what you've always done. For the last 20 years, you've aligned your business with your soul. Help other people do that too.
Hey everyone, it's Sophia from Sacred You. Thank you so much for being here. A quick message before we dive into today's conversation. You may have been watching the podcast videos but have not had a chance to hit that subscribe button. So if you have ever gained value from our videos, from our conversations, it would mean so much to us if you would hit that subscribe button below right now, or even just give us a like. And what that means is not only does it allow us to grow our subscriber base, but it allows us to bring in more important guests for you to listen to. And you will be one of the first ones to be notified. So please hit that subscribe button and let's get started on today's conversation.
Welcome to the Pathways to Wellbeing, presented by Sacred You, a community empowering women all over the globe. My name is Helen Prince, and I'm very pleased to introduce today Gayle Herring. Hello, Gayle.
Hi, Helen. It's lovely to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us. I'm really quite looking forward to this conversation, just reading a little bit about your bio, because I think it's something that a lot of women in business will really resonate with and will really want. Gayle is a dynamic, soul-guided success coach who empowers female entrepreneurs to infuse their business with clarity and purpose. Who doesn't want clarity and purpose when it comes to business, right? And you help them uncover their hidden treasures in life. What does that mean, Gayle?
I guess ever since I can remember, when I started reading, Helen, I was into adventure stories. And so
Yep.
I would read the adventure stories under the covers of my bed, under the bed, in the closet, with a flashlight, and I would absorb myself in the world of adventure. And I've found that we all have clues in our own adventure that lead us to the treasure. That's my job, is to help people find the clues in their soul's journey that lead them to the treasure. And in business, that's success and happiness. Not just success, success and happiness.
That's right. The happiness is, I think, more important. The happier you are, the more successful you're going to be, not just in business, in all aspects of your life. Absolutely. It needs to have that element in there. When you are in that alignment, things just go smoother, don't they? Things flow.
Yeah. Let me give you a scenario. A friend of mine, he's a high-flying entrepreneur, always has amazing projects on the go. I hadn't seen Steve for a couple of years. When we caught up over dinner, I said to him, hey, how's your latest project going? And he said, I hate it. And I was really surprised, because Steve is working on a medical breakthrough, he still is, that can change lives and also set his family up for life financially. I said, why? And he said, from the time I get up in the morning to the time I go to bed, I've just got these problems and they're just getting bigger and I can't solve them. So I've got to try and find the right person to solve them. And he said, I'm getting it wrong. He said, I'm choosing the wrong person, which makes these things bigger. It amplifies them. And he said, I'm traveling all the time, because he does work in Australia and also in the US. And he said, and we've been working on this project for 12 months, and we've only just found out that there's a particular business protocol in the US that the medical fraternity insists upon. And he said, we've been doing this for 12 months, and he was just so over it. And I said to him, Steve, what's your self-care routine like? Because we all know that when you're stressed, you've got to look after yourself, right? And I'm sure your listeners would know that. And he said, I don't have one. And I said, well, what about your meditation? Are you still doing that? And he said, no.
Don't have time for that?
I'm thinking, you're on the plane all the time. How can you not have time? So I knew from the clues that Steve had given me that if he meditated, tuned in and aligned with his inner wisdom, that his day would flow much more effortlessly. He'd go from, oh, do I have to get up in the morning, to I can't wait to start the day. And that's the difference between aligning with your soul and having a day that flows effortlessly, or struggling, just constantly struggling.
And we all know what we should do, right? What we should do, what we do is often poles apart. So how do you, okay, let's say that I am an entrepreneur, I've got my business and what I want to do. And if I'm struggling a bit, if it's not aligning, if things seem really harder than they need to be, how do I get out of that rut? How do I get off that merry-go-round? Because all the chatter of we've been conditioned, you just got to work harder, keep at it, put in longer hours, which compounds the stress and the overwhelm and that whole I don't have time. So how do you get off that merry-go-round?
This is an experience that you're talking about that I've had, because I absolutely love connecting with passionate, soul-driven women. When I got an invite to this small business group, it was on the Gold Coast, I couldn't resist. These incredible ladies were there and they were all talking about creating businesses that truly aligned with their values. And during supper, I spoke to one lady and I struck up a conversation with her and I said, how's your latest project going? What is it? Tell me about it. And she was excited and she shared that she was launching a certified Reiki course, and I was thrilled for her. But when I asked her, who's it for and what's it cost? And she said, it's for professionals and it costs $200. And my heart sank, because I'd seen this pattern so many times before, Helen. Why didn't these amazing spiritual women see their true worth? Why didn't they realize that by clarifying their message and aligning with their values, they could also achieve financial success? That's why I put that into my business, because that's a platform for change. And most women don't believe they're worth more. That's where we start.
Absolutely. You've got to start with the person. I think women especially, we've got so many insecurities, don't we? And then that shows up in what we do, and probably more in what we don't do in our businesses. It's paramount. You have to start on that. That's part of your program when you're working with someone. If I was to come to you and I am already in business, what does that look like working with you?
What it looks like is that we would sit down and find out where you're at and where you want to go to, because you need a map. And that's a part of the 3 things I'll give your clients or your listeners today. And you need a map. You need to know where you are and where you're going. And then you have to map out the clues along the way. But everybody's different. And that's why I like coaching much, because I paid $20,000 during COVID for a group coaching course. And I thought, this will take my business from here to here. I thought this will be great. When I did and I got in, I thought, yep, good information, but I didn't see many coaches very often, being on the other side of the world. Things happen at 2:00 in the morning. And that's not my best time of the day, 2:00 in the morning. Sessions with people, or you're in a Zoom breakout room and you're talking to people and they're after ideas or you're receiving ideas. I found, though, is that the information that the coaches were giving me was information for traditional businesses, things that fitted businesses that people were focused on making money. And I'm not saying making money is bad. Everybody needs to make money, but making money first. When I spoke to one of the coaches with your soul, because at that time I help spiritual soulmates, help people find their spiritual soulmate. When I spoke about spiritual, that's woo-woo. You do not connect that in your business. That's suicide to do that. I actually got out of it at the end of that year. I thought, I can't do this. I got out of that business and it took me a year to find what was working for me. We already had a bricks and mortar business where we did align our soul with our business. We'd done that for 20 years, but now I was transitioning online and it's a little bit different. After that 12 months, I had a light bulb moment and something said yes. What it was that I figured out that I'd had the signs the whole time, that the universe was always telling me, this is what you've always done. For the last 20 years, you've aligned your business with your soul. help other people do that too.
Yeah.
And that's what I found. It's important to do that. People talk about spirituality and they talk about business, but a lot of my friends wanted to know, how do you combine the two? You can't have both. I think that's a myth in business, is that you can't have spirituality in business. And in fact, I'm a believer that you must. To be successful and happy, you must. There are a lot of successful people out there, millionaires, billionaires, but not a lot of them are happy, or not a lot of them even know how to be happy. And interestingly enough, you don't even know that you're not happy until you become happy. We used to hear in our business, we had a natural therapies business, and we heard a lot of things like happy enough, I'm happy enough, or I'm okay. And what does that mean? What we've found is that when somebody's happy enough, it means I'm not game enough to strive for more, because I might then figure out that I'm unhappy and then I've got to go further.
Or I might lose what I've got.
Exactly.
And if I'm happy enough,
I'll just
we
put
can
up with
sort of
it.
get
Yeah.
by. It's funny, isn't it, how happiness seems to be so low on the priority list. Because when you think about okay, why do you want to have money? I've got freedom and choices and I can do whatever I want. Why do you want to do what you want? Because it feels good and I'll be happy. But it's like it's this far away thing down the end of the line that we all want, but we've got it around the wrong way.
We have.
And yeah, and it's funny how people think that you can't have both. It's like you are one being, you're not separated into different little pieces that work on different things. And I guess too, it's what their definition is of spirituality. How do you define spirituality? What is your definition?
Well, a lot of times I don't use the word spirituality now, because one of my speaking coaches said to me, she said, but people don't understand spirituality. And
They think it is this thing that is not necessarily
thing, or
me.
connected with religion or something like that. So I've started calling it soul and soul connection, because that then takes it away from the religion a lot and gives it a different framework. I call it soul connection a lot now rather than spirituality. And although to me, I guess when you say what is spirituality, it's like, I don't even think of it as a thing. I do galactic soul readings. And so to me, we're spiritual beings, full stop. And this is a tiny, tiny part of our soul's journey that we're having. If the soul is the size of your body, and it's much, much bigger, but say it was the size of your body, this incarnation that you're having is the fingernail on the tip of your finger. That's how tiny, it's not insignificant, but that's how tiny it is. So then as beings, as spiritual beings, but as beings, we go around and we think that we have to make all these decisions and do it all ourselves and make all these, have all these experiences, and we feel alone when we're operating from our fingernail rather from connecting with the whole of our body, because it's the whole of our being that is guiding us. So the tiniest part of you comes into this incarnation, and the rest of you, which is about 99.9%, stays behind and is guiding you. And that's what you call your higher self, or your inner guidance, or source energy, is the rest of you. So why would you go it alone?
Do you put intuition into that basket?
Absolutely, yeah, because you can't have intuition without connection. So intuition, inspiration, creativity, love, joy, blissfulness, all of that comes into that. That's the highest that we can achieve on this plane. You probably heard of people having near-death experiences that they say, wow, it's well beyond what we know. But from what we know on this plane, that's about the highest that we can get.
Yeah. And so why do you think that we have come apart from that, Gayle?
I think that was our plan all along, is that we come into this life, and rather than come apart from it, it's about remembering, but we're remembering from a different perspective. And why that happens is because as we remember who we are, and we have different experiences to do that remembering, what happens is that we expand and our soul expands as well. So we're having this huge expansion, and as we expand, they call it the universe expanding, because we are one. Us, our soul, and the universe is all one. So as we have that experience from that different perspective, that's the expansion that occurs. And so I think that's why we come into this life forgetting who we are and then having these experiences. And we've had every decision you can make is another experience that you will have had on some reality in some place. Yes, I
Okay.
made the decision to marry this person, but then there's another you that made a decision not to marry that person.
Yeah.
And I got beaten up in this lifetime, but then there's another lifetime where you didn't. So we have lots and lots of experiences so that we can keep on expanding, growing, and that's how we evolve. That's what evolution is of our soul.
Yeah. Beautiful. And do you find that, because I know you're talking about working with women, but obviously you have male clients, you're talking about Steve. Do you find you need to work differently with your female clients and your male clients? Are there different needs, maybe different perspectives? I'm thinking more the maternal side of things, which is prevalent in women. It's obviously men have that as well. We all have the male and the female energies. Do you find that there is differences in how women are in business to how men are?
I think that's saying, are all humans similar? And it's not. Women aren't all similar.
No.
Women, we aren't all similar. Some are focused on money and some are focused on the children. Some put their whole lives into bringing up children, and we've got 7 of them. So some of them spend their whole lives bringing up their children and they put their whole focus on that. And others are high-flying entrepreneurs, and others still. I'll give you an example. When we lived in the US, in California there for a couple of years, we had a friend of ours who is a mother figure to us, and she's the same age as my mother here in Australia. And when she turned 80, I got in contact with her and I said, wow, Lindy, I said, 80, I said, that's great. I said, what are you going to do now? And she said, I bought a golf course. And I said,
As you
oh,
do.
of course you did. Money's no object, of course. And I said, oh, of course you did. And to me, that was just far removed from what my mother would do, who
Yeah.
is active and she works in the hospital once a week, but buying a golf course, that's not on her radar. So
Yeah.
even as women, we're all totally different. And I guess that's why I like one-on-one coaching a lot. When I do group coaching, it's small group coaching because I want to get people who are in a similar place moving forward. So that's more about a soul space rather than a business space of moving forward. And sometimes men can connect to that.
Yep.
But often I keep men and the women separate, not because they're different, but because we're all different. Each one of us are. And my husband is in touch with his feminine side. He was brought up by a mother since he was 10. And so he's very connected to his feminine side. Does that mean he doesn't watch footy? No. Does that mean that he can't connect with his emotions? Sometimes, but there are some women who can't either.
Exactly. And then we are all different.
We are all
So
different.
how does that then show up in your life? If we bring it back to you're talking about getting your connecting with your soul. So when we're not, we talked a little bit about there's the struggles. And while you were talking about that some women stay at home, some have the businesses, the ones that want to do both, can they do both? Can we have our cake and eat it too?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's our path is to do that because it's you are who you are and then you take yourself with you. You can't have a hat for work and then a hat for home. That's just exhausting.
Yeah.
Because your soul, you're more than just a mind and a body, and your soul is always whispering clues about which way to go next and what turn to take and what's next for you. And so those signs and synchronicities are important, but sometimes we tune them out and we get a bit of static. And that leads to discontent and disconnection. And we just feel like we're wallowing in the shadows of our own greatness. And you know, because you feel frustrated and you feel anxiety and you feel struggle. I don't want that for women. I don't want that for people.
Yeah.
I want you to be able to claim the treasures that have your name on them because we all have treasures that do.
And I take part of your program is helping the women to stop ignoring those signs and all the little things that you're talking about, the whispers, and I guess tuning back into it. And how do you learn then to trust those whispers and those signs and allow that
We give them a
alignment?
treasure map, Helen. Yeah, the treasure map consists of the clues. So that's the signs and synchronicities in your daily life, because that actually gives you clarity.
Yeah.
And then the map, now the map gives you direction. If the clues give you clarity, the map gives you direction. So it takes you from where you are to where you want to go with all the clues plotted out along the way. And then the treasure, not the big treasure chest that you open up and all the gold comes out. That would be nice, but it's the little win. It could be something like getting that contract that they've been after for a while, or going to the gym because they promised themselves they would, or feeling good about your body today. They're the little wins that your soul wants you to celebrate. When you do, it leads to more clues that give you more direction, that helps you then gain more treasure. So it's a cycle of success and joy. And so that's what we help people do, is to connect with their treasure map and align that with their business, because their business has to have that treasure map flowing through it for them to have success and happiness.
Do you find as well, and I love that, because we've all got the map, we just don't know how to read the map. We're holding it upside down, or maybe back to front. So you're helping us read the map, which is fantastic. I love that. And do you find as well, and again, this is going to be different for everyone. Okay, I've got this business and you're helping me now to read the map. Is it possible that I need to then completely change business? I've found that, okay, this doesn't actually align. This is why I'm struggling so much. Is that something, or can we align to the business?
That's a choice that we have. That's the freedom of choice. That's the difference between coaching and mentoring. A mentor is somebody who you look up to and say, I'd like to do it like that. But a coach is different. The coach asks a lot of questions and helps you to find answers for yourself, just like I did in counselling. You ask a lot of questions and then you help people to find the path for themselves. Because I know when I first started out, I started out with a website called spiritualsoulmate.com, and I was helping women align that they could find their soulmate. But after a while, I thought, like the people that I'm working with, they're not my people. It's not that they weren't nice people. It's these weren't my ideal clients. They're not the people I want to be working with. And I don't know if any of your audience can relate to that, but sometimes you get these clients and you think, these just aren't my clients. They're not the ones I want to work with. And then I had to pivot. I had to change and decide what's next for me. And sometimes that takes a while to sort out. It doesn't happen.
And I think too, this is, I think, what we need to keep in mind. You don't get one decision and that's it forever. You've got to start. And then the more you do it, and the more aligned you get, the more clarity you get. And then the beauty of having so much choice in this world is that if you find, okay, I thought this is where I wanted to go and I started down this path, but then when I got to this point, I realized, no, that's not actually it. And I need to actually fall off this way or that way, or make a little tweak and a change.
That's the adventure, Helen. That's
exactly. That's part of what you do as well. If somebody comes to you and they get that clarity, you help them read the map. And then if they get to that fork in the road where they go, maybe this isn't what I thought it was going to be, do you then help them to get that clarity to find out what is the right path for them to take in that moment?
Absolutely. Because I always find that the signs are within. Sometimes that's what a treasure hunter does, is helps you get the treasure out, find that treasure within and bring it out. And so sometimes there's a bit of digging involved and get that treasure. But a lot of times it's so innate within you and you use it so much during the day that you're not even aware it exists. And so rather than going in something that you think, oh, this sounds interesting, it's like, but who am I? Who am I? Who have I become? And scrape it all away and find, this is who I am.
That's right. We don't always see ourselves. We can't see what strengths are necessarily. it's obvious to other people. And it's like what you were saying in the beginning. You've been doing this for 20 years. And then it wasn't until, this point where you've gone, oh, because it was so natural. It was just something that you did. It wasn't something that you were necessarily had that full conscious awareness of what you were doing. And I think that can be sometimes with us. We've got these talents and these treasures, but we can't always see them, whether it's because we can't see ourselves or whether it's because of our own insecurities and fears and all the self-doubt
I was
going on.
I was ready for change as well, because 25 years ago, when I first started counselling, I worked at a crisis centre, and every time I'd go in for the graveyard shift. I'd go in for, I think it was maybe 8 o'clock at night till 7 o'clock in the morning. You could sleep
Right.
if no calls, but I got calls from all over Queensland and up in the Northern Territory. And I would ask before every shift, give me something that I can move forward from. Show me something in each of these people that call that I can move forward from. So I was after the little nuggets of gold. Now, the people that called in, they might have domestic violence, or they need to leave their husband because they've been beaten badly, but there are reasons why they can't. I'd be talking to these people. They might even make out a list and decide, yeah, there are 100 reasons why I should leave, but only one. But he's nice to me when he's not drunk. And that's an emotional weight. And I would leave that call and think, okay, what's in that for me? In that scenario, for instance, it wasn't about domestic violence. It wasn't the situation. It's never the situation. It was, oh, yes, I make up excuses why I can't do things too. I know that this is what I should be doing, and this is what I'm going to feel good about, and this is where I want to get to. But I'm using some emotional trigger to say, no, I can't do this. And so having done that, I would take that little nugget. It might have been covered in dirt, but I'd scrape away the dirt and this little gold nugget. And I'd say, okay, yes, I acknowledge that. Thank you. And then I'd move forward. Now, I told some of my colleagues that I was doing this, and I said, you can use this to move forward. And they said, you've got to be crazy. Why would you want to do that? Scrape up more problems. I didn't see it like that. I saw it as moving forward exponentially. I had these opportunities, these little nuggets of gold, and I was going to look for them, because that meant that I could grow more quickly. And I'm only ever growing in the direction I want to. The clues are always leading you towards your treasure, not away from it. So I went after the clues more and more, give me more. So it was these little nuggets of gold, and you don't even have to do anything with them. You just acknowledge them, because acknowledgement is so powerful.
Yeah, it's that awareness. You can't change anything until you have the awareness. And you mentioned that you were ready for that change as well. So how important is the readiness aspect?
I think it takes a lot of work, Helen, to be ready, and you don't know you're ready until you're ready. And I think change is a process. There's only one, I suppose there are two. They call it death and taxes, so the only two constants in life. But really, it's not even taxes. Not everybody pays taxes.
That's right. If you've got a good accountant.
But change is constant in our lives. It's constant in everybody's life. And I remember years ago, I went for a hairdresser that lived, we had a squash court at the time in North Queensland, and across the road there was a hairdresser, and she used to bring in all these amazing, wonderful people like past life therapists, and one of them was an aura reader from Brisbane that she'd have up in North Queensland, and we would go along and see what it was all about. And so I went and had this aura photograph, and it wasn't, now they usually press a computer and it all comes out. She was intuitive, so she would decipher it for you. And you sit in this chair, and if you've ever had one before, you put your hand on this steel pad. And I did, and I put my hand on the steel pad, and I thought, and she has this Polaroid camera, and she takes a photo, and I thought, oh, okay. I don't know what I expected, but it was just nothing. And then she said, hang on a sec, I haven't put any film in the camera. So she goes and gets the film and put it, and while she's doing that, I can feel all this stuff happening around me. It's as if my guides are saying, come on, hurry up, get in the right place, we're going to get our photo taken. And it was, that's what it felt like. And I put my hand on there and I could feel it. And she took a photo. And it was really interesting because then she could tell me what was happening. She could say, see, she said, from these little dots up the top there, these little circles, she said, I can see that there's something you've worked on that's leaving your energy field. And she was right about that. And then she said, these little colours coming together here and in your throat, they tell me that you've made a conscious decision for change. I thought, yeah, she's right, I have. And so she could give me all this information. And she said, this is before I was a counsellor, she said, you're a born counsellor. She said, are you doing counselling? I said, no. And she said, you need to do that because you're a born counsellor. And she said, and you need to leave this town. I said, we're leaving. She said, when? I said, we're actually packed. We're leaving next week. Good, she said.
Wow, that's amazing.
So it was quite amazing. But what she picked up was that I had made a conscious decision for change. Change is, to me, it's natural, it's easy, it flows, and it's like a river. You either get in the river and you flow with it, or you try and struggle and go upstream against the current. And that doesn't work until you stop and then go back downstream again. They build monuments usually to men who have struggled to go upstream and build these huge businesses and empires. But it's when they stop struggling and they go downstream that the empire comes about, that the business turns around, that the ideas come, that the creativity flows, not because they struggled, because they stopped struggling. And in that stop struggling, they've actually tapped back into their creativity.
There's a lot of beliefs, misconceptions, or whatever word you want to put to it, around how, I don't know, there's virtue or nobility in struggling.
Yes.
The more you struggle, the more you deserve the success, which...
Well, doesn't that come from our parents, really?
We come from a long time ago, I think.
But most of us were brought up to struggle.
Work hard.
And we always brought our kids up to say, do whatever makes you happy. Do whatever makes you happy.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
One of our daughters, our youngest daughter, she, from the time she was 19, she's travelled overseas and she has spent time in Canada and Japan and all over the place, but she's only 25 now. And she said, I'm not sure what to do next. I probably need to get a real job, and because she was in hospitality. And I said, why don't you do what makes you feel good? And she said, but I can't do that for the rest of my life. Says
who? Yeah,
exactly. So she's looked at the people around her and thought they don't, and they're not happy, and they've got to get a real job, and that's what you just got to do sometimes. I think we do. We look for evidence in the environment, in the people around us, in society, in the news, and then we decide, oh, maybe this feeling good thing, nobody else has it. Maybe I should
some merit in it. Yes, that opens up in a whole nother can of worms. We feel guilty for having a good life, or for feeling good, or for being happy, when I've had
someone pull me up in the street before because they said, why are you always smiling? And I'm thinking, really? I've been on cruises before where somebody's come up to me crying, and I said, what's the matter? And they said, oh, I got into trouble because I was laughing and happy, and these people have been on these cruises all the time, and they're just not happy. They thought they were, until they found people who were actually happy, and then that shone a spotlight on the fact that they weren't happy at all. They were just pretending and spending money and being showy and thinking, hey, this is happiness. And that's not happiness.
No. Oh, goodness. I love that you're doing that, and I love that your focus is on just feel good because it feels good to feel good. End of story. That you don't need an excuse to feel good. And I love that you're turning all of that around.
Yeah.
So do you also work with people who are sort of in that transition? So you're working with entrepreneurs. What about somebody who has been doing the 9 to 5 because that was told this is what you should do and get a real job, but then they want to get into that, become an entrepreneur, have their own business? Do you work with women in that sort of transition-y phase?
Yes, because I've worked with those women a lot, because being a spiritual counsellor, that was who came to me a lot, were people who were transitioning. They wanted to get out of something that they didn't like. And I think the acknowledgement that they don't like it is the indicator to them that they're ready to move forward. Because if you can put up with it, if you can keep going, if you can say, I'd really like something different, but I always go with that but. I'd really like something different, but, or I'd really like another lifestyle, but, or I'd really like to be a famous musician, but then you're not ready to move forward. I tend to attract the people who are ready to move forward.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's right, because they're the people that are in alignment with your vibration, with your purpose. That's, it makes sense that you're attracting them. And I was just going to say before, I love whatever comes after I would, but I can't because there's your limiting beliefs. And if you can even have that awareness, and sometimes it can be a little bit of a, oh no, that's not right. And there can be resistance around that. But then if you can be that little bit open and go, oh, okay, maybe there is something there that I can change. I think that's going to start you at least looking in a different direction. And by doing that, then there's the opportunity for things to change, for things to open up, for people like yourself to come in to their reality, I guess.
And I think too, it can come from different areas that you're not expecting. I was living on the Sunshine Coast at the time, and we lived on 5 acres it was an old nursery, had lots of trees, and therefore you got lots of leaves in the gutter. And when I would clean out the gutters, I would cut all up my arms. A friend of mine says, I've got a friend of mine who's a gutter cleaner. I'm sending him over. And I said, all right. He came over, my gutter cleaner, and he did his suctiony thing, whatever it was. And then we started talking, and he was a spiritual guy. And we were talking about different books we'd read, different people we'd seen, things we followed. And then at the end of the conversation, he said to me, and what would you like to do with your life? And I said, I can't remember exactly what I said, but it was something noble. I'd really like to help people change their lives. But at the end of it, I said, but I probably wouldn't be able to do that. And he said, do you realise you've just undermined yourself? And I thought, oh my God, when he said that, I thought, the realisation hit, I do that all the time. I could hear myself doing it over and over again. I thought, oh my God, this is a pattern that I have. And then from that time on, I could say, no, I don't do this anymore. And I'd like to say my whole life shifted, but it began to shift because I wasn't getting in the way. If you're building something up with one hand and tearing it down with the other, then you're at neutral all the time. You're at the same space. But if you can actually build something up with one hand and not tear it down, then you're actually moving forward. Sometimes we plant these seeds and we can't see them growing, but they've got fertile ground and they're putting down roots. But when the ideas come, they get leaves and they grow into something amazing. And that's what was happening in my life. Little things began to shift, little signs and signals that I had. They were the clues on my soul's journey that something great was happening. But it all came from a gutter cleaner.
That's right. It was that one thing that brought the awareness that allowed the change to happen. And I love that you have that focus you were talking earlier around how it's the little things. We've got to pay attention to the little things. Don't expect some big parade to say flashing lights, this is the way to go. It's often those little choices that we make every day, or the choices that we don't make, the things we do, the things we don't do, that cause us to go in a certain direction. We don't wake up one day 50 kilos overweight. It was the decisions that we made every day for the past 20 years that caused it. And if it can happen in a negative result, it can happen in a positive result as well. It's just having that awareness. And this is why I love what you're doing and helping people to read the map and to change direction on the map. You don't have to the map is not fixed.
Yeah, and I think the important thing are the signs. It's the clues that you get all the time in your life. They're always in front of you. They're always there. And people look for big clues, but sometimes it's just the little things that you see something that's similar, maybe a number plate that means something to you, or you have the angel numbers or the times. And mine is hearts. I find hearts everywhere. I was showing my husband all the hearts that I'd taken photos of over the years, and even the stains on silverware, things like that. I was in a dentist surgery one time, and they had some timber on the wall there, and it had a heart-shaped stain. It was quite big, and it's
Yeah.
like it's just everywhere. When you're attuned to it, you can miss those. They're there all the time. What it's
Yes.
telling you is that you're aligned with your soul at that time. And they're the
I
signs
love
that
it.
help you align. Because when you see the signs, then of course that gives you more direction. But it's those little wins that you were talking about that are really important, because that's people talk about having a gratitude journal. I don't have one of those, but I do have an appreciation journal. And there is a
Yep.
little bit of a difference in that gratitude is, oh, I'm really grateful for something. Whew, thank goodness I don't have that. There is a bit of a residue of what you don't want there, but appreciation is on that level we were talking about again with joy and bliss and creativity. And I have an appreciation that I write in every day. Sometimes they're things I appreciate from stuff that's happened now, or there's stuff that I'm thinking is going to happen in the future, and I appreciate them anyway. So I always write those, and that tunes me in for the day. And they're the little wins. I'm appreciating all those little wins, which then give me more clues. It is that cycle of success and joy. And I only practice what I preach. I don't use anybody else's work, and I don't pass on anything else that I haven't used, because I don't know if it works or not. I can only pass on the things to other people that have worked for me. And I'm pretty good at tuning in. I guess that's the first thing we do, is help people to uncover their soul's gifts. And one of mine is helping to find where people are at. And even though sometimes they can see the big step, they can't see the tiny increments. And I'm good at being able to do that. The next little step and the next little step and the next little step. Because if you want to climb a tree, you look at the bottom, you start at the bottom and you look at the top and think, okay, that's a long way, but you've got to take it little branch by branch.
That's right. If we could super jump to the top, we'd do that, but that's not the reality. And I love that. I love that analogy. And I love that you were talking about the gratitude and appreciation as well. I used to hear all the time, oh, you should be grateful. You should be grateful. And say, yeah. Well, you know what? I don't. I don't feel grateful right now.
Exactly.
And it's very hard to feel grateful right in this minute.
Yes.
I could do it through gritted teeth, grateful for my family, but you don't feel it. I love that you're talking about the appreciation, because you can always find something to appreciate around, whether it's a person or a situation or something like that.
I think too, Helen, it's a bit like meditation. It's a practice. A lot of people say,
Yes.
oh, I can't meditate. And it's like, I've tried it once and I don't like it, or it didn't work for me. And I'm thinking, well, how many children have you got? I tried it once and I didn't like it. It's a matter of, you need to practice. I always tell people we have 7 children because we wanted to get one perfect. But it's a matter of practice, meditation as well as appreciation. Practice of doing it, practice of doing it, practice of doing it. Sometimes you don't. And I write a whole page and I do it longhand, and because then I'm in it for longer.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think, oh, I'm only going to do half a page today. No, I'll just keep going. And by the end of it, I feel so much better. You just got to fake it till you make it.
I find it's easier to get on that roll when you're appreciating than trying to force gratitude when not feeling it.
But also,
then you feel guilty about not feeling it.
That's right. And also, though, when you're on that roll of appreciation, that's the time where it's easy to slip off, because you think, oh, yeah, I already feel appreciation. Oh, yeah, I know that.
Yeah.
Oh, it's easy. And then slowly you're sliding and you don't notice that you're sliding until it's, oh, okay. I've taken this path without realizing. Yep, now I've slipped off.
Yeah. Oh, oops, I haven't been to the gym for a month now. I thought it was 3 days, but when we look at the calendar, everything, I guess it takes that conscious decision to do it or not do it. But this is where we've got the free will.
You've got to become, I remember I was hearing a talk by Dean Graziosi. I don't know if you know who he is, but he's one of Tony Robbins' best pals. And I heard him on stage one time talking, and he said his first marriage was really tragic. But he said with his second, he met a lady and he thought, I want to be the best person I can be for her. And for me, but I can't have her. I don't think that I'm good enough to have her until I become the person that I want to be. We're like a sculpture. We don't have to take something and say, this is who I am. It's we keep on remolding and changing and shifting and adding a little bit here and taking a little bit away there or forgetting it and then adding a little bit more. And we can mold ourselves into who we want to become. I'm certainly not the person I was as a teenager. Gosh, I was labeled as having a bad attitude. And teachers, parents, everybody said that you have a bad attitude. And I was really pissed because how come God or whoever it was, because I wasn't religious, how come they gave them the pretty card and them the nice card and they gave me the bad attitude card? I'm going to have to live with this for the rest of my life. And I can't do that. And that's the only time I think that I really thought maybe I just end it here because I can't do anything about it. Nobody ever told me that I could change it. And I guess that's why I'm so passionate about change.
Yeah.
Because nobody ever said to me, you can change this. You're not stuck with it. I was in my 20s. I was a single parent and been through a divorce. And I didn't even have any money. And my ex-husband said to me, I'll buy the television set for $400 or something. And I said, oh, all right, whatever. And there was a course that I wanted to do that came up that I thought, I need $400 for. Here we go. I've got $400 on this television set. And it changed my life. And it turned around, it helped me to understand that there was more to me, more to life, more to everything. It was a personal development course, but it was about 10 all wrapped into one. And this in the late 80s. And it was something that, or mid 80s actually, and it was just something that changed my life. So that was really important to know that change can happen no matter where you are or what you're doing. But nobody ever told me that. And so I'm sure that I let people know that who they are is not who they're going to end up, but they can become whoever they want.
Yeah.
People
And
say
that's
you can
such
have whatever you want, but they don't say you can become whoever you want. And that's the process. To have what you want, you have to become who the person is who owns what you want. And I think a lot of times they miss that piece out.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that. I love your whole perspective on change because when I think about change is always happening, I think that's a good thing because you don't want the stuff that is making you miserable to be stuck and set in stone. The fact that it can change, I think, is incredibly empowering. And the more that people can truly understand that, I think the better life is going to be. You don't have to sit and suffer. You don't have to just, this is my lot in life and give up. Everything is possible if you want to do it.
Exactly.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Gayle. This has been an amazing conversation. Before we wrap it up, is there anything that you'd like to leave the audience with?
Yes, remember that your clues are the signs, they give you clarity. Your map gives you direction and takes you from where you are to where you want to go with the clues plotted out in between. And then the treasures. So the sign, the map, the treasures, and it's the little wins along the way that are important.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And if anyone would like to know more, just reach out to Gayle. There will be links underneath this video. If you're feeling a little bit lost, if you would like some clarity, if you want to learn how to read your own treasure map, get in contact with Gayle, and I have no doubts at all that she will be able to help you with that.
Thanks, Helen. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Thanks so much, Gayle. Have an amazing day, everyone.
As we wrap up today's enlightening episode of the Pathways to Wellbeing podcast, I would like to thank Gayle Herring for such a wonderful and heartfelt conversation. As Gayle shared, your soul is always communicating through signs, synchronicities, and subtle nudges. And if you would like to dive into Gayle's Treasure Map coaching program, where she helps soul-driven women align their business with their purpose and inner clarity, view her website with all the links and all her other resources in the notes below. At Sacred You, we are committed to creating a space where women from all over the world can support, uplift, and empower each other. Visit Sacred U's website to explore upcoming workshops, events, and community offerings. Check us out at www.sacredu, that's the letter U, .love. And as always, if this episode spoke to you, please subscribe to our podcast, share it with a friend, or leave us a review. And in Gayle's own words, your clues are the signs that give you clarity. Your map gives you direction. And it's the little wins along the way that are important. Until next time, stay grounded, stay inspired, stay connected, and keep walking your pathway to well-being. From our hearts to yours, thank you.